Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Red Cloud webinar featuring Jaguar Mining, the TSX-listed gold producer located in Brazil. I'm delighted today to have my old friend Luis Albano Tondo, or simply Albano, the president and CEO of Jaguar Mining, with us today to update us on the progress that they're making at their operating and project portfolio located in and around Belo Horizonte, Brazil. Albano assumed the CEO role in May of this year and is charged with leading the company on their next phase of growth that includes the resumption of production at the Turmalina mine, the development of the Onças de Pitangui project, and some really exciting new chapter of exploration that they've just announced in the district. Our expectation is that Jaguar is going to triple production to over 130,000 ounces by 2028 and is positioned to expand the reserve and resource base considerably over the next few years. My name is Ron Stewart, and I'm a research analyst here at Red Cloud, and I'll be your host this afternoon. I had the pleasure of working with Albano previously a number of years ago when we transformed the Paracatu gold mine in Brazil to become the largest gold producer there. During today's webinar, we invite you to ask questions. At any time, simply type the question into the chat box on the side of the screen, and we'll get to them, as many of them as we can, by the end of the seminar. During today's webinar, you'll hear some forward-looking statements by Albano. We direct you to review the company's forward-looking statement on page 2 of their investor presentation. This can be found at www.jaguarmining.com. I'd also like to point out that the presentation today is for information purposes only and is not a solicitation to or recommendation from Red Cloud to buy or sell securities. Any participant should rely on their own research and seek their own professional guidance before considering an investment. And finally, if you're interested, you can find all of our research, including our coverage of Jaguar, on www.redcloudsecurities.com. Please note that and review the disclosure statements that accompany all of our reports. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Albano to take us through the story. Albano, over to you.
Okay, Ron, thanks very much. And it's a pleasure to be here and with your audience to share our story. Okay, first of all, you can see the picture of our RG plant. It's a beautiful site here in around Belo Horizonte. Reminds me a bit of Beaver Creek, although we don't have pine trees, but it's a very hilly and beautiful region here. You mentioned about the disclaimers. I'll just pass through. Okay, so who we are. For those that are not too familiar with Jaguar, we are a mid-tier gold producer located in Brazil, specifically in the state of Minas Gerais, close to Belo Horizonte, which is the capital of the state. Minas Gerais is the mining hub for Brazil. So we are really in a very good location regarding mining. Very, very good tradition in mining. We are TSX listed. We have 3 operating complexes, as we call. By complex, I'm talking about at least 1 underground mine and 1 plant. So starting with our Caeté complex, which we've got the Pilar mine and the RG plant, which is in production. And then we have the Paciência complex, which is our Santa Isabel mine and our Paciência plant. This has been in care and maintenance since 2012. But given the current gold price scenario, we are reassessing now for reopening that mine. And the plan is to start that in next year. And finally, the MTL, or also known as Turmalina complex, which has got the Turmalina mine and Turmalina plant. That mine and plant were in production since up to end of last year when we had a stockpile slump. I'm going to talk about that as we go forward. Currently, it's planned for restarting Q1 2026. So all this area that we are located is known as the Iron Quadrangle, which is a very prolific greenstone belt in Minas Gerais. In fact, one of the most interesting greenstone belts to be in Brazil in terms of gold production. The Iron Quadrangle has a history of 200 to 300 years of gold production, where, according to the register, more than 50 million ounces of gold has been produced over the years. And Jaguar itself started operations back in 2002. So we have more than 20 years of production history consistently. In terms of resource and reserves, our measured indicated resource, as declared in the last March, has got 1.66 million ounces at a grade of 4.19 grams per ton. In terms of inferred resource, we have more or less the same, 1.68 million ounces at 3.56 grams per ton. And that turns into reserves of about 764,000, more or less the same grade at 4.02 grams per ton. In terms of the team, you already introduced myself. I have more than 35 years of experience. I joined Jaguar some 4 months ago. Before, I worked with major companies like Rio Tinto and Kinross. That's when we met in the Paracatu site. At that time, I was responsible to build that expansion project, which today still is the largest operation of gold operation in Brazil. And then I started joining junior mining companies in the last 15 years, working in copper, gold in Chile, Uruguay, and now back to Brazil. We have in our team Marina as the interim CFO, Eric as VP Business Development and Operations, and Carla Tavares as VP Corporate Affairs. All these three people, they were before in Jaguar for at least 6 to 10 years, so they know the company pretty well. We have Juliana joined the company 1 or 2 months ago as VP Sustainability. Myself and Juliana also. Juliana worked for me in Paracatu. She was the one responsible for getting the permit for the expansion of Paracatu. So now we brought her to the team, so we have the robustness on the permitting side that we'll need going forward as I'm going to discuss our growth profile plans. And finally, we have Armando Masucato, our General Manager of Exploration. Armando has got more than 30 years of experience as a geologist. He's got a PhD degree in geoscience, and he's the one that is behind our 5-year exploration plan that I'm also going to discuss in this presentation. I encourage you to read the biography of our board. Our board has got a diversity of skills, starting with Jeff Kennedy, and then technical people like Ben Gunter and Shastri Ramnath. We have Luis, which is a very well-known lawyer in Brazil. Marilyn is a director and very focused on auditing. And finally, Tom Wang is a financier out of New York. So we believe that with the skills that we have in the board and in our leadership team, we are very well prepared to move the company forward and applying the plan that we're going to discuss. What is the plan then? What is the strategy? Well, the strategy is pretty straightforward. It's based in 3 pillars for growth and for sustainable value. The first pillar has to do with maximizing our core assets and resource. In other words, making the most of our current mines and current plants. The second pillar is to leverage the exploration portfolio, which has to do with doing a lot of exploration, the tenements that we already have. And finally, the third pillar is going to be to pursue strategic opportunities. In other words, the first pillar has to do with organic growth. The third pillar has to do with inorganic growth. And in the middle, we have the exploration going on to identify more resource and turn them into reserves so that we can quickly bring more ounces to our production profile. Let's start discussing each one of these pillars. So pillar number one, which is maximizing our current assets. I'm going to talk about the production that you are seeing for this year out of the Pilar mine, because remember that the Turmalina mine is still on halt. So these figures that you see in the slide are still up to June this year, so are the results of the first half of this year. We are disclosing now the results for the quarter. They are going to be coming out next week. And up to June this year, we had over 20,000 ounces of gold produced out of Pilar at a grade of 4 grams per ton. So we are forecasting that for this year, Pilar is going to do 40,000 ounces of gold, more or less the same all included sustaining costs that you can see there, $1,725 per ounce. That has generated a adjusted EBITDA of 44.3 for the first half. Nowadays, with the gold of price that has moved up, we expect to have even a better EBITDA up to the end of the year. So that's Pilar and RG plant. Turmalina. Well, Turmalina, we had an issue in December last year, which resulted in a temporary suspension, which was our dry stacking pile slump. As a result of that, it wasn't a major incident. It didn't kill anybody. Fortunately, there was no contamination of any creek, any river, but it did cause some disturbance in the nearby community. Fortunately, we reallocated them before the slump occurred. But as a result, people are still, they could not come back to the neighborhood. Some will be able to come back, others don't. Therefore, that generated a number of fines, penalties, and a lawsuit that had to be dealt with by the company. In the first half of this year, we were able to negotiate all of that. So, for instance, we negotiated a community compensation agreement at about $10 million worth. Also, an environmental fines, which was settled at $11 million. And the lawsuit was settled at $7 million. All of that, which in total is about $27 million, we negotiate the payments to be made installments of over between 1 to 5 years. So at the end of the day, that's not going to affect our balance sheet. And what we are doing now, we are advancing the stabilization and closure of the Satinoko pile, which was the one that had the slump. Once we finalize this work and we can have an independent consultant to confirm that the geotechnical parameters are according to the standard required, then we expect the embargoes to be lifted on the mine and on the plant of Turmalina. Now, what we managed to do as well was to get the approval from the mining agency for us to go back into the Turmalina mine. Actually, the Turmalina mine hadn't been affected at all, but was still in suspension. And they agreed to allow us to do preparatory underground working, because the idea here is that as soon as we can have the embargoes lifted, the next day we want to start extracting ore from Turmalina. And that preparatory work, I'm happy to say, that is now substantially finalized. So what we need to do now is just again to finalize the earthworks for stabilizing the Satinoko plant, and also we had to prepare a new area for future tailings. That area which we are using is an old pit we call the Fina pit, which is about 3 kilometers away from the mine site. and that's being lined and prepared also to receive the tailings, which should be also finalized towards the end of this year. So we believe we are on track for a restart on Turmalina as soon as we lift the embargoes in Q1 2026. So I consider this incident as a page turned in the history. In terms of projected annual gold production, that's the profile that we see. So this year, again, with the Pilar mine, we are forecasting to reach 40,000 ounces of gold of production. And then next year, we're almost doubling that because we are considering that Turmalina is going to come back. Also, we are adding some ounces regarding the Santa Isabel mine, the one that was in care and maintenance up to since 2012. What we've done this year, we start to dewater the mine and start to rehabilitate the old galleries that were there already. And we expect to have some of the ounces to come from that mine as well. So the idea is to be between 75 to almost 80,000 ounces for next year. Then the following year, we start the new project that we have, Onças de Pitangui. Onça de Pitangui was a project that was acquired as a result of Jaguar acquiring all the assets of IAMGOLD in Brazil. So what is going on with Onças de Pitangui right now, it's under licensing. The idea is to get the license for starting opening the portal. It's going to be an underground mine by mid next year, and then starting to see some ounces coming in the following year, 2027. So we are allowing some ramp up for Onças de Pitangui, which is going to be adding something like 42,000 ounces of gold on top of the productions from the other mines. So if you consider that ramp up, we believe that in 3 to 5 years, we are going to be well above the threshold of 100,000 ounces per year, and even getting to 120, 130,000 ounces per year, only using our own existing assets and the existing mines and existing plants. So one interesting aspect is that our current plants, the RG plant and Turmalina plant, they have spare capacity, so that's why they are going to be accommodating these extra tons, for instance, from the Onças de Pitangui mine, and also from other projects that we may get online as we move with the exploration plan that I'm going to talk in a minute as well. This is just a picture showing where the Onça de Pitangui deposit is. You can see in that the hill on the back there. And again, the idea is to have the first ounces starting to come by second half of 2027. In terms of reserves, we have something like 284,000 ounces at 4.16 grams. And in terms of resources, that project has got 457,000 also at the 4 grams per ton. And in terms of inferred, 490,000 at the 3.64 grams per ton. The good thing about this project also is that it's only 40 kilometers from the Turmalina plant. Therefore, it's a greenfield project that only requires the mine to be built. We don't need to build a new plant because, as I said, the Turmalina plant has got spare capacity. And their plan is to have something like 42,000 of ounces per year coming from the Pitangui project. And finally, it's got good metallurgy as well, with something like 91% of the gold being recoverable from that ore. So that's the first pillar. Let's talk about the second pillar, which is exploration. And one thing that is very important to realize that the Jaguar, this is a picture of the Iron Quadrangle. So you see, you have Belo Horizonte right in the middle here in the central portion. And if you trace, if you take a distance 200 kilometers to the west or 200 kilometers to the east, That's where we get all our complex located. And Jaguar has got over 46,000 hectares of mineral tenements. We are just second to Anglo Gold Ashanti in the area. The Iron Quadrangle historically has been a very good gold producer. In this picture here, for instance, you can see two world-class deposits. One is Morro Velho, the Morro Velho mine, which according to register has produced 11 million ounces over the years, over 100 years of operations. And the Cuiabá deposit, both are from Anglo Gold Ashanti. Cuiabá has already produced 10 million ounces, and according to Anglo, they still have more 10 to go. And we are pretty much in the same geological alignment of these two world-class deposits. So all these color areas here are targets that belong to Jaguar. Including here in the Turmalina complex, we also have other targets. So overall, our geologists in the last 5 to 6 years, they were able to identify as much as 400 targets of exploration that we are now considering to start investigating. So the idea here, or the problem here, is not to find a target for exploration, it's how to prioritize them. And the priorities, as we are defining here, is number one, the ones that have got more information. Most of them have got some drilling done, or some surface geology done on top, that we do have some information. Sometimes that information is not for 8101 compliant, but is good enough to guide us for the next stage of exploration. And obviously the ones that are closer to our existing assets, our existing plants. Therefore, that will make that if we are successful in this exploration, we can bring those ounces as quick as possible to the existing plants. And that's the idea. And as I said, if you look at, for instance, Morro Velho, this lineament that goes through the Paciência complex is one that is very promising, very exciting to be looked at, and that's one of the targets that we are using. But there are others as well. So that's the idea. Based on this plan, we are going to have a 5-year plan to explore all that. And then you may ask why Jaguar, being in the market for more than 20 years, we still have this sort of opportunity. Well, the explanation to that is that in the past 5 to 10 years, Jaguar concentrated all the exploration efforts mostly in the underground mines, existing underground mines, to define the resource and reserves, which were successful. Now we've got a good resource and reserve base, but now is the time to look at the surface, look at some, I'm calling that greenfield exploration targets, and we believe that we have a very, very interesting scenario here. So this is the plan. This is a 5-year exploration plan, detail with the targets that I said, using that ranking that we developed. We came up with these targets year by year. And then you can appreciate that the amount of drilling that we have each year, which are going to be increasing in meterage. So overall, in these 5 years, the idea is to have as much as 220,000 meters of drilling ongoing. Start this year. I'm going to talk about the Chamé target, which is one of the most promising ones, as we think. And that's going to start as fast as next month. That's the idea. What is the endowment that we are looking here? And here you also have the ounces that our geological team are going to be investigating year by year. And overall, we are talking about a total endowment between 4.5 to up to 7.8 million ounces. If you are successful, even with 50% of this endowment, that means that we are going to be doubling our current resource base. That's why we are very excited with this plan. So one of the most promising targets is this one. It's called the Chamé. We believe that that can be a bulk open pit mining opportunity in the area. That's in the Paciência complex. And what you can see in this picture here, first of all, here is the footprint of some very old excavation. And by old excavation, I'm talking about something that was done 250 years ago by the colonizers, by the Portuguese colonizers, we call the Bandeirantes. And these people, they were looking for high grade, obviously high grade material. What our geologists discovered, we've done some trenching recently in the area. So we first had some chip samples collected in the excavations on the rock, which gave very good grades, like 2, 4, even 27 grams per ton on these high grade zones. But what is most interesting is that once they've done the trenches, they discovered that in between these two high grade zones, they found to have a reasonably low grade, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5 grams per ton, which is more or less what Paracatu has got, and continuously, but that was continuously. In other words, that's a hydrothermal alteration halo of gold in between the high grade zones. When you consider all this package to be mineralized, you come to the conclusion that that could be a bulk open pit mining opportunity. According to the geologists, if you compound the grades that were coming from the trenches plus the excavation, we could have something like between an open pit with 1 to 1.5 grams per ton. Now, the strike of this is about almost 1 kilometer, and there is a cross-section here that shows the dimensions of what could be potentially the ore body. In true thickness, we have something like 100 meters, and the strike, as I said, is up to 1 kilometer. So when you do the calculations and consider 250 meters depth, we could come up with some endowment here of resource of at least 1 million ounces just at this deposit. So with that in mind, the idea is to start drilling as soon as possible, and we'll be mobilizing at least one drill rig as soon as next month to start this drilling so that we can confirm that we have continuity between the high-grade zones, and in between the high-grade zones also this halo of alteration, which again, together we would have something like 1 to 1.5 grams per ton in average for the ore. And what is interesting, most interesting, so Chamé is here, as you can see, and is very close to the Santa Isabel plant. I'm talking about something like 3 kilometers. So if we can quickly identify this amount of gold, of resources, then we will make the decision to refurbish the Santa Isabel plant that has been in care and maintenance since 2012. So we need some refurbishment, but then the idea would be to bring that into production as soon as possible. So over this area, including the other targets that are in the same lineament, we believe that we have an endowment between 2 to 3 million ounces. And that's only the start. If Chamé proves out to be the geological model that we are considering, then we have other targets that are very, very similar in nature, geologically speaking. In fact, the other thing that was done in this area was we flew some geophysics, some drone to make some geophysics, and the lineament that we see in this lineament that will take Chamé and Santa Isabel. We have 2 other lineaments parallel to that, which has not been shown in this picture, but could also have the same sort of opportunity. And here in total, we are talking about a strike over these targets of up to 15 kilometers. So it's amazing. This area seems to be very, very promising, and that's where we are starting with that one. Okay, so that was the third pillar, the second pillar. The third pillar is, as I mentioned, pursuing strategic opportunities in Brazil. For those not too familiar, Minas Gerais is here. And then the ones that I color, the other states in Brazil that I color, are the ones that we are looking for opportunities, M&A opportunities. So what are you looking for? The strategy here, or the criteria that you are using, is the following: to identify some deposit that is in advanced exploration state, and by that I mean have at least some 43-101 resource delineated, and probably a pre-feasibility to a feasibility study done, and the ones that could sustain a annual gold production of at least 100,000 ounces of gold per year. We do see some opportunities like that, and the other criteria, considering the advancement of the project, is in Brazil. You have three licenses when you want to build a project. We call the LP, the preliminary license, the LI, the installation license, and the LO, the operation license. The LP is the hardest one to get, because that's the one that you need to do your environmental studies, and then you present to the authorities, and you prove to the authorities that your project is environmentally sustainable. That's the hardest one to get. It takes 2-3 years to get. And then once you get the LP, you can move then to the installation license, the LI. Typically, between LP and LI, it should take between 6 to 12 months to be granted, but that's very straightforward. And finally, the LO you get after you build your project, and they check if what you said you're going to build, that's what you have done, and they give you the LO. Now, there are some companies, and I'm talking about some junior companies, that for some reason they get stuck between the LP and LI. So they manage to get the hardest one, the LP, but then by the time they try to get the LI, they have some challenge. For instance, if the environmental study is missing a component, or they haven't consulted a nearby community properly, and so on, they get challenged by the public prosecutor, and the LI gets stuck. That's the type of opportunity that we believe, with our team that we have, the skills and experience that we have in our team, we can resolve, and then we can acquire these companies reasonably with a very good price. Of course, would be nice to buy a pre-production asset, but that would cost a lot of money, especially now with the very high gold prices. Therefore, that's the niche that we are targeting. And although I cannot disclose any news, we are looking at these opportunities, and we believe we'll be able to succeed in a near future one of these opportunities. And again, if we then move forward with our existing plan, which is number one, the first pillar, to get over 100,000, 3 to 5 years, we're going to be 140, 150,000 producer of ounces producer. Then we add one of these acquisitions with another 100,000. All of a sudden, this company can be a 200, 300,000 gold producer. And we are currently at a market cap of $500 million Canadian. We will be past now $1 billion, $2 billion Canadian, which is some companies that you see in Brazil that are already at that sort of level. So that's the strategy going forward. And just a comparison of our relative peer valuation, if you consider any parameter like PNAV or P over cash flow or free cash flow yield, you can see that we are still trading much lower as compared to our peers. So if you get involved in the story now, you would get something like a 27 to 30% discount. So I would say that that's a good time to get involved if you're not involved yet. in summary, we believe we have an experienced leadership with proven track record in building new projects, building new mines, and developing the company. We believe we have a robust strategy based on this three-pillar growth approach. We are operating a tier one jurisdiction, certainly in Brazil. Minas Gerais is the best state to operate in terms of mining tradition. We are cash flow generating. We are a producer. Next year, with the margin that we believe we're going to have, we're going to be producing over $120 million of free cash flow. So we can execute our plans with the money that we are generating, and obviously we need to do that as a responsible miner. We are committed with ESG principles, especially safety for our employees and taking care of the nearby communities. And that's our capital market profile. So these figures here are from 14th of October. We were like 581 million of market cap. Today is down a bit because the share price has gone down a bit, but we are over a $500 million market cap company already. In terms of shareholder ownership, we have a very, very strong support from Eric Sprott. He owns 48% of the company. He's been a very supportive shareholder since 2018. And we've been covered by Red Cloud, Research Capital, and Ventum. So Red Cloud, Ron, I'm very pleased that you are covering the company. And that's what I have to say, Ron. So I'm keen to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Albano. That was very kind of you. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions, and I really appreciate the thorough presentation and walkthrough. We'll start with, where does management see the Turmalina all-in sustaining costs settling in once you get it ramped up? And can you talk to us a little bit about the ramp-up process?
Yeah, okay. So that we are still on the process of finalizing the budget for next year, but we believe the costs, all included sustaining costs, will be between $1,600 to $1,700 together, comparing Turmalina and the pillar production. Okay. In terms of the ramp up, the plan, to be honest, is to be ready as soon as we can lift the embargoes, which is something that we don't control, to be honest. The idea is to provide all the information to the government, and then they will lift the embargoes. But the preparatory work has already been finalized in terms of we had to do a new emergency exit and to improve the ventilation in the mine. That is done. And now what we are trying to get from the authorities also is to move ahead and start secondary development and even some drilling. So by the time early next year that we lift the embargoes, we are going to be ready to start blasting and extracting ore straight away. So that's pretty much what we believe. And virtually there will be no ramp up needed because we're going to be ready, and the plant is ready as well.
And previously, Turmalina was running at a rate of almost 1,000 tons a day or something like that. No,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, I think the last year the plan was to produce 350,000 tons of processed ore. So the idea will be to produce anywhere between 30 to 35,000 ounces from
Okay. Now, when you bring on Pitangui, another question that we've got is, when you bring on Pitangui, will you batch process the ore, or will you blend it together with Faina ore?
That's a good question. The idea will be to batch because the metallurgy is pretty different. We've got a very good metallurgical recovery from Pitangui, like 91%. And Fina is going to be more challenging. Fina goes between 55 to 65%. So my experience is that when you mix good with bad, you get bad. So the idea is to have a batch production from each one of those deposits, and that can be very well planned. That's not an issue.
And I think you may have answered this during your conversation, your remarks, but can you just remind us how long you believe it would take to permit the new Carmen, the new project opportunity that you've got, and how many ounces do you feel would be necessary to justify the development?
Okay, again, the projects that we are looking at, they have already got LPs, which is the hardest one to get. So to get the LI, it shouldn't be too hard. And what you are seeing that there are some these issues that people get challenged. It goes through discussing with the authorities and clarifying the issues. So I'll say between 6 to 12 months maximum, you'll get the LI. But in the meantime, if, for instance, a project like that has got a PFS, you would have to do a feasibility study in any case. So the time that you are getting to get the LI is the one that you're going to also use for doing your feasibility. So you're not adding more time on top of the equation. And in terms of ounces, what you're targeting is anything that can sustain 100,000 ounces per year of production.
Which would be somewhere just north of 1 million ounces, presumably.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
In terms of total resource, yes, over 1 million ounces for sure.
Okay.
Some of them are even more than that. Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed about ounces depicting you is that you've got a total resource measured, indicated, and inferred resource of around 900,000 ounces. Transferring some of those resources into reserves, what's your feeling about that? And is there expansion potential at ounces to Pitangui to begin with?
For sure. So the idea we have already started doing field drilling now to confirm at least the first levels of production, but we see lots of potential there to increase this resource. And in fact, nearby the project, we have other tenements that show exploration potential in the area as well. So I believe that whole area is open for exploration.
I think it might be worth a minute of your time, Albano, to discuss the simplicity of mining at Onces de Pitangui. It's a relatively flat ore body that isn't very deep, so you ramp into it and mine it, and so mining should be fairly productive and relatively low cost. Is that correct?
Well, it's still an underground mine,
Yeah.
and that's in this banded iron formation. So, it will require some development, but you are right in terms of depth. It's not gonna be comparable, for instance, to Pilar. Pilar is now we are at 1,100 meters deep. Pitangui is not gonna be that kind of depth. So I believe in terms of cost, we may see lower costs. Like right now in Pilar, we are having something like $70 per ton of mined ore of cost. Pitangui is gonna be more in the range of $40 to $50 per ton in terms of cost. So it's gonna be a lower cost mine as well.
Yeah, no, that's my point. Is it's a relatively shallow ramp access to get into the ore body to begin with, and then a relatively well-behaved ore body, geometrically speaking.
Yeah. By the way, the infill drilling that is coming out, the results we are getting exactly where the geological model was saying we were going to have the ore. We are being spot on that.
Another question that we've got from our group here is, does management have any intention of starting a dividend or a share buyback once Turmalina is fully ramped up and you're sort of hitting your mark at 80 to 100,000 ounces a year.
Yeah, well, the idea here now is to prioritize, as I said, the exploration plan, which is going to require money. We are talking about for this plan to spend at least $10 million US dollars per year. So that's going to require like 50 to 60 million dollars of in total for these 5 years. Once we start getting those good results, and also in terms of the cash flow, if gold price continues to go the way it is, for sure we'll consider something like that.
Okay. You've already got over 3 million ounces in total resources, 3.4 million ounces of total resources. What do you feel that ultimately, how much of that can transfer over into reserves? Do you see good opportunity to maybe double your reserves just based on the resources in hand?
Yeah, that's something that we are constantly looking now. Of course, again, with the gold price going up, that means that your cutoff grade can be reduced. In fact, we are doing this exercise as we speak. We are going to be producing towards the end of the year the life of mine plan for the whole company, and I think there is some good opportunity to convert some of these measure indicated resource into reserves, and also some infer resource into measure indicated resource as well.
Now, you mentioned that you've got 3 mining complexes. Can you just recap your total processing capacity that's already in place?
Basically, it's 500,000 tons per. I think RG is a little bit more, like 680,000 tons. But overall, let's put a fixed number of 1.5 million tons of processed ore if you sum up all the 3 complexes. So today you are using like 50% of that capacity. That means that as soon as we can find more resources from the exploration plan that we just discussed, we are going to have the spare capacity in our plants to start feeding that ore into the plants with no need to any expansion.
So I think from a investor point of view, what that translates into is reduced capital to move new ounces into the production profile.
And timing, I think nowadays for you to build a new plant, it takes a long time, but because we already have this installed capacity, once we can define the resource and come up with a mine design, we'll be able to bring those ounces very quickly to production.
I'd just like to ask our listeners if there's any other questions. We have Albano on the line here. Now's your time to ask a question. I'm delighted to hear some more responses if there's more questions. I think that's about it for today, Albano. Listen, we really appreciate your time. We look forward to hearing the updates as you go forward. We think that you've got an exciting plan and opportunity to really create a lot of value here. And so best of luck to you, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for the opportunity, and for the audience, just stay tuned, because as we go with all this plan, the idea is to keep the market well informed.